Hello, Abigail here with the astrology for this week. This week is very impactful in the astrology of 2025. It holds a really big moment. So just know that wherever you are in this moment, this is the point that the past few weeks have been building towards. We have just come off of the Venus Uranus conjunction, and that means that Uranus is moving into Gemini this week. This is one of the biggest moments. It will move back into Taurus for a hot second later this year. And then in 2026, early on, it'll move back into Gemini for its full cycle. But this is the first moment of that. I will be doing a brief video just kind of touching on, the last times Uranus was in Gemini, some of the themes, just to give some context for anyone who might be feeling curious or anxious, depending on how things are going for you. But yeah, on Monday, Uranus goes into Gemini. This is a whole different energy. The Uranus transit is around 84 years, give or take. So, this is the only time we will be experiencing this, possibly. You'd have to you'd have to be a child at this point to experience Uranus and Gemini. So, really big deal. This is the Uranus return for a lot of our elderly people in politics, because a lot of them are in their 80s. So just walk away the people you know in power right now who are in their 80s. It is their Uranus return. And it is massive change and shifts at a time in life when the body is not really willing, but the spirit may or may not be. So there is kind of a cognitive dissonance around Uranus returns. If you have a Uranus relationship with someone who is in their late 80s, this will be affecting that. I have someone who hasn't spoken to me to a while, and I am their Uranus Sun conjunction. My Sun is conjunct their Uranus, so maybe we'll talk again, or maybe we won't. But if you have a Uranus relationship with someone, this is a good time to check in. It's really big. Like I said, I will be going into more detail in a different video, but just to kind of give a quick take, the last few ones were 1941, 1861, 1859. 1861 is when the Civil War started. 1859 and 1774 were the last times that Uranus entered into Gemini. So I think you can correlate what the theme of Uranus and Gemini is. And every single time in the past three iterations, including this one, so not past three, but this one and the last two iterations, Pluto has been in a fixed sign. Not in the same sign it is in now, but it was in Taurus and Leo the last few times. So yeah, it's a lot. I don't think I checked the 1774 Pluto, but I should. Oh, actually, I know what that is. That's Pluto and Capricorn. So the last one is in a cardinal sign, but the last two were in fixed signs. So like I said, I'm kind of rambling into my exposition on Uranus and Gemini already, but just know that revolution and change and war are often Uranus and Gemini. If you remember, Gemini is ruled by Mercury, has a lot to do with innovation and creativity and schools of thought. So, yeah, I encourage everyone, you don't have to be an astrologer to study this type of stuff. You can just be curious, but definitely go on a little rabbit trail. Uranus in Gemini is a really potent transit. Then, moving on this very same day, we have Venus trine Pluto. Anytime Pluto comes into interaction, I find with personal planets especially, obviously the bigger ones, things happen, but because they have such longer transits and orbits, it's more of a slow reveal. Secrets and hidden things and incompatibilities and struggles are often brought to the forefront with Pluto, because Pluto is about death and rebirth, heavy on the death. So as Uranus is kind of birthing into Gemini, which is the exact kind of iteration of what the Fool is in the tarot. I've been getting the Fool a lot. It's heavy air energy. Uranus is associated with the Fool in the tarot deck. So it is this energy of complete newness. And then we have this trine with Venus and Pluto, which kind of brings in this heaviness. Now remember, it's a trine, so it's freer flowing energy. It's less confronting, isn't less difficult. Venus trine Pluto can be the acceptance of an ending. It can be the ability to kind of digest and understand, if we're talking about the air quality of it, something's passing or something's timeline or the context of a relationship within the time that you are existing, especially coming right on the tail of that Uranus Venus conjunction in Taurus on last Friday, which I'm actually currently recording this under on a Friday. um, yeah, there's a lot of upheaval. Also, we're in the Mercury shadow period, folks. And I'm Mercury ruled. So pardon any of my slip ups and dyslexic turns. But yeah, there's going to be a lot of upheaval, a lot of truth and revelation. I think you're also going to know, especially with the way things are in the world, there's not a whole lot of place for people who are neutral or don't care or secretly participating in things that you do not align with. That's going to become obvious, where relationships just aren't functioning. And it's not that the function is a block, it is an acceptance of the way something is. Now, there is a bit of innovation. There might be a possibility with a relationship that has a bit more root to it or a bit more substance to change course and to put to rest the ending and death of one portion of the relationship and have it reborn as a new and better version of itself. That is possible. But you have to accept the toxicity and the rot and the decay of what is currently present, grieve it, put it away, bury it, have a ceremony for it, and have rebirth. And if that relationship or that person or that connection that you have does not have the ability to be long lasting, then it might go away altogether. So just know that this is the vibe of this week and the weekend into this week. A lot of opportunity for growth. So if you are grieving a passing relationship, if you are grieving a loss or the removal of something, know that this is very much a Nine of Wands moment in the tarot, which is this feeling of like the last stand, a passionate kind of fight to the edge of something to make it through, and to persevere on the other side. This is that moment if it feels rough. Once we get past this point and Uranus gets into its own trine with Pluto and Venus moves and gets separated from Pluto, there will be a sense of more freedom. There will be more solutions. Uranus will be throwing things around. If you are not used to and okay with the chaos of Uranus, it might be hard for you. But if you are someone who is flexible and malleable and quick on your toes, you'll do pretty well with this. Like I said, it doesn't make it easy, doesn't make it simple, but it does make it digestible. And I know most of you are like, Abigail, I have participated and partook of chaos and upheaval throughout however long. And yeah, I know. But unfortunately, it means you're better at handling it, even if you feel stretched to the edge. And I am not saying this lightly. I'm right there with you. So that is Monday. We do get kind of little time to disseminate and kind of disperse this energy because the next kind of major thing is on the 10th, which is a Thursday, which is our full moon in Capricorn, at 18 degrees. The major aspect is actually with the South Node. It's sextile. I will be once again doing another more expanded video on it and the planets it's interacting with and engaging with. But because of where everything is, it's actually not that interactive with a lot of planets, right? Because we have a bunch of stuff over in Gemini, so that's in conjunct. And we can absolutely talk in conjunctions, but in conjunctions to me are more of a kind of what's a good word for that? A separation of energies and an inability to connect to something rather than, action points. So I don't always focus highly on in conjunction when it comes to like just talking about the day to day. Now, when talking about a natal chart, that's a whole other story. When talking about an exact date in someone's life, that's a different story. But when talking generally, it can also create space. So this moon feels very personal. It feels less involved with other people. Doesn't mean it's not communal, doesn't mean there aren't connections, but there is kind of a moment to really focus on the self and focus on what you have been experiencing on a personal level. And there's a lot of themes of past life stuff because we have a nodal issue going on. Not really an issue, it's actually very helpful, but South Node sextiles are very focused on the resolution of things and trying to wrap yourself around an idea. Actually, it's not a sextile, it's a trine. Not as progressive as a North Node trine, but definitely an ability to kind of, and because it's in Virgo, sorry for my mumbling, and because it's in Virgo, it is a desire and a need to get into the tangle of things and try to unravel things. I think my only kind of point um, that I'll say before we move on, because I'm going to make a longer video about this, is in Virgo, it is this desire to untangle, but you do need to be specific about what you're untangling or you will get overwhelmed because the South Node is so intertwined and interengaged. And in Virgo, it is on hyperdrive. Also check where your nodes are in your chart and see if they are in contact with this moon in any way or with the nodes where they're at. Mine are not. Mine are in conjunct. Doesn't mean it's not going to be impactful. It just means it may be a little less personal. Then on Friday, we have the Sun trine the North Node, which is really beautiful. This is expansive, um, dreamy, beautiful energy. Also, for now, this is a time when Saturn and Neptune aren't involved. So this beautiful, obviously the nodes are separating even when they do re-enter, but Pisces will be under that pressure again later this year. But now in this moment, we get a really free, beautiful, flowing Pisces North Node, which is full of magic and expansion and kind of believing in the impossible. Uh, and the kind of delusion it takes to progress through life and space and time, which I think is really wonderful. I think it's also a moment that's in contrast to this lunar event, where the lunar event is probably going to feel a bit overwhelming and the need to release karmic pasts and ties. It's going to be helpful for any of my clients who are doing karmic remediation right now, which is where I help remediate and remove past life cords. And if you're not working on something like that with a practitioner, it's a great time for personal work to release things that are just no longer working, to release expectations that maybe have been given to you by society and not an ingrown need, needing to conform in some way. And then you realize that being like that conforming isn't you wanting to conform or needing that confirmation from the outside, but it's you kind of trying to force yourself into a mold. That North Node is going to free you from that, and the work begins in that South Node trine with that moon. So, the astrology is per usual working very beautifully. But yeah, it's a real moment of a week of kind of untangling and interacting and like dealing with the past and releasing it and processing it and honoring it, and then projecting into this really beautiful, caring, rich future that at this moment we may not be able to see, but through that Pisces North Node lens, we can dream and imagine of something so beautiful we can't put words to it. And I think that's something we all really need right now, with how everything in the world is going. In the US, in Congo and Sudan and Palestine, it's all very overwhelming. And of course, these things have existed for years. But yeah, that North Node, um, that North Node in Aries and the previous ones through Taurus and through Gemini, all of these progressions and all of these Saturn stories. And, we've come to a point where Saturn and the nodes have crossed, which I think is why this is such a prevalent story, has been revealing to us the things that do not work. And it happens over a period of years. And this Sun North Node conjunction is a moment to believe, is a moment to hope, is a moment to refresh. It's a moment to see the best in people. And you can see the best in people without being completely delusional. People do have good things in them. And it's never bad to see the possibilities while recognizing, which is the South Node, the limitations and the choices that people make that do not portray their best selves. And I do absolutely believe in evil, but I'm talking more about, a neutral next door neighbor or someone in your community who is struggling equally as you and has taken maybe a different route to relieve that struggling and has made it worse for the rest of us. I'm not saying you have to accept those people, but it is a reminder that under the surface, with the exception of those who truly enjoy suffering and terror, a lot of people are just surviving. And one of the only ways we're going to make a better future is to participate in such a way that our vision gets shared, and that Cancer Sun and that Pisces North Node is a shared delusion and illusion and reality, because it's also possible to be real, of joy and abundance and the caring and needs being met of other people, regardless of the people in power, regardless who has the money. Pisces doesn't care about the cash, which can make it hard if you have Pisces in a place that's very cash oriented in your chart. Pisces cares about the expansion of something, the abundance of something, the eternalness of something, and money is not eternal, and power is not eternal. In a way, Pisces is very death oriented, but more, less on the grief side and more on the fact that everything does and doesn't exist at the same time, which is kind of a very strong theme of endings and beginnings. So it's a really powerful moment. It's a really beautiful moment. I encourage you to really enjoy it. Another fun fact that my friend B over at the Zine Witch has highlighted is that it's also a grand trine with the asteroid Juno, which is partnerships and people that we can build lives and homes and legacies with. And so it's a great opportunity for meeting people you're aligned with, for finding romantic partners, for connecting to pretty much anyone that there's a long-term potential with. It's a great time to give birth or to conceive a child as someone who works with spirit babies. It's a beautiful time to recommit to something that involves another person, another partner, whatever that looks like for you. So Friday is a great day for that this week. And then last but not least, Saturn's retrograde, folks. And it's heading back towards Pisces, where it will be once it gets into Pisces till 2026. I want to say it moves around the beginning of February. Excuse me, back into Aries. So zoom out, big picture. Seems like a long time. Not really a long time. And it goes back into Pisces on September 1st. So yeah. And, outer planets and, the two great malefics and benefics, obviously it's kind of a more extended burn of what the events are going to be like, but they are still distinctive. A lot of people don't work with modern planets, which are Uranus, Pluto, not a lot, but like people who practice traditional Hellenistic astrology don't work with them. But they are still effective. I work with them. I find them very effective. To each their own. There's nothing wrong with not using them. But their retrogrades and the outer planet retrogrades are just as potent as the smaller retrogrades. They just have a longer period of time to work themselves out. Whereas the shorter periods of time that the personal planets have, it's the same amount of stuff just happening in a smaller container, which is why they feel so much more intense. But those extended retrogrades have a story as well, and Saturn is going to be re-understanding and rethinking. It's stationing, I think, at 1 or 2 degrees of Aries, and it will station direct at 26 degrees of Pisces. So look in your chart. Do we have oppositions? Do we have squares, trines, conjunctions? That's going to be really important to your Saturn story. And if you are a Saturn Aries or Saturn Pisces person, this is a transition period for you. So think about it, lock in, get a reading with someone, or don't, or do your own research. I've had people ask how best, what are the best resources for understanding and reading your chart? And the best resource is learning to understand and read your chart. At some point, it is better to accumulate the knowledge rather than constantly going to a resource, even if you don't plan on doing it. I think there's a richness to the ability to just you don't have to do expanded understanding of stuff, but just basic chart reading, which I think I might do a series on at some point, just how to read a basic chart, a simple process for doing it. You could spend an entire lifetime learning about astrology and be a professional and do it professionally and never reach even close to the edge of what you can understand and study. So I know. I know minimally compared to the amount of resources, and you, as someone who may or may not be an astrologer, can absolutely access that knowledge on a really simple level in a way that you can understand that, it doesn't have to be a job, but it can be really beautiful and helpful to just understand aspects and the qualities of things and house systems. Um, I will say it's addicting, so be careful. You too might become a professional if you go a little too deep. But it is a beautiful thing. So, definitely, when I do these videos, I always encourage you to go get your chart and look at it and see what's happening. So, as we finish this out, we begin the week with Uranus in Gemini, same day, Venus trine Pluto. Then we have that full moon on Thursday, the Sun North Node trine on Friday, and then on Sunday we have Saturn retrograde. It's at 1 degrees. I actually put that in my notes, proud of myself. If you notice, there's usually a wide range of differing resources depending on how autistically burnt out I was and how much energy I had when I did my research. Anyways, that is this week. It is really intense and powerful. Be gentle with yourself. It is a full moon, so the full moon sleepies will be upon us. Um, know that Venus is under a lot of pressure coming out of Friday last week and moving into this week with a Pluto trine. So be tender with your relationships, be tender with yourself in relationships. Don't make any snap judgments, but when the time feels right, do what you need to do. That's my advice for that. Anyways, my loves, as always, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in a different space and time. Have a blessed week.